Most people believe the only way to burn deep belly fat is through extreme effort. Long runs, brutal circuits, and breathless workouts dominate fitness culture. But visceral fat does not respond well to punishment, it responds to signals. The human body evolved to protect internal fat stores during stress, not release them. When exercise becomes aggressive, the body shifts into defense mode. Understanding this single concept changes everything about fat loss. The goal is not to scare fat away. The goal is to create the conditions where the body willingly lets it go. Visceral fat is different from the fat you can pinch. It sits deep inside the abdomen, wrapped around organs like the liver and intestines. This fat is metabolically active. It releases inflammatory compounds, interferes with insulin sensitivity, and disrupts hormonal balance. That's why doctors associate it with higher risks of heart disease, diabetes, and metabolic disorders. Because it is biologically active, it also reacts strongly to the body's stress signals. When stress is high, visceral fat tends to stay. When stress is low and energy demand is steady, it becomes accessible. This is where Zone 2 training enters the picture. Zone 2 is not a trend or a buzzword. It is a physiological state where your body primarily uses fat for fuel instead of sugar. In this zone, oxygen supply matches energy demand efficiently. Your heart rate is elevated, but controlled. Your breathing is deeper, but calm. This environment tells your body that it is safe, stable, and efficient. Under these conditions, visceral fat becomes a preferred energy source rather than a protected reserve. One of the biggest misunderstandings about fat loss is the obsession with calorie burn. Calories matter, but metabolism matters more. Zone 2 training improves how your body handles energy at the cellular level. Inside each muscle cell are mitochondria, tiny structures responsible for producing energy. The more mitochondria you have, and the better they function, the more fat your body can burn at any time. Zone 2 training is essentially mitochondrial training. It doesn't just burn fat during the workout. It upgrades the engine that burns fat all day long. Research consistently shows that moderate, steady aerobic activity increases mitochondrial density and efficiency. This means your cells become better at using oxygen to break down fatty acids. Over time, this leads to a higher baseline fat-burning capacity. People who train this way often notice that fat loss continues even when workouts feel easier. That's not a coincidence. It's a sign that their metabolism has shifted. The body has learned that fat is a reliable, accessible fuel source, not an emergency backup. Another critical factor is inflammation. Visceral fat thrives in inflammatory environments. Chronic stress, poor sleep, and overtraining all increase inflammatory markers in the bloodstream. These markers signal the body to hold on to energy reserves. Zone 2 training has the opposite effect. Studies show that consistent low to moderate intensity exercise lowers markers like C-reactive protein and improves liver fat metabolism. This creates an internal environment where visceral fat is no longer protected. Instead of fighting your biology, you are aligning with it. There is also a strong connection between visceral fat and insulin resistance. When insulin sensitivity is poor, the body struggles to move glucose into muscle cells. Excess glucose is then stored as fat, often around the organs. Zone 2 training improves insulin sensitivity by increasing glucose uptake in muscle tissue. This reduces the need for high insulin levels and lowers fat storage signals. Over time, this process directly targets the mechanisms that cause visceral fat to accumulate in the first place. Many people assume that effective aerobic training must happen outdoors. Running trails, long walks, and cycling routes are often seen as essential. In reality, the body does not care where movement happens. It only responds to intensity, duration, and consistency. Indoor Zone 2 training produces the same metabolic adaptations as outdoor exercise when performed correctly. Oxygen delivery, mitochondrial activation, and fat oxidation are driven by effort level, not scenery. This means you can achieve powerful results without leaving your house. Inside your muscles, a quiet metabolic shift occurs when you enter Zone 2. The body reduces its reliance on glucose and increases its use of fatty acids. Scientists measure this shift using respiratory exchange ratios in laboratory settings. A lower ratio indicates greater fat utilization. While most people will never see these numbers, the effects are easy to feel. Movement becomes sustainable. Energy feels steady. There's no sharp rise and crash. This is the metabolic signature of efficient fat burning. Zone 2 training also emphasizes slow-twitch muscle fibers. These fibers are built for endurance and are packed with mitochondria. Unlike fast-twitch fibers, which rely heavily on sugar and fatigue quickly, slow-twitch fibers thrive on oxygen and fat. When you train them repeatedly, they adapt by increasing their mitochondrial content. This adaptation does not disappear after the workout. It remains active throughout the day, increasing your body's ability to burn fat even while resting. This is why Zone 2 training often feels deceptively easy. From the outside, it doesn't look intense. But internally, complex metabolic processes are taking place. Your cardiovascular system becomes more efficient. Your muscles improve their oxygen usage. Your nervous system remains calm. All of these factors combine to create an ideal environment for visceral fat reduction. People who judge workouts solely by how exhausting they feel often miss this deeper layer of effectiveness. Another advantage of Zone 2 training is its sustainability. High-intensity routines place heavy demands on joints, connective tissue, and recovery systems. This often leads to inconsistency, which stalls progress. Zone 2 training is gentle enough to perform frequently. Consistency is one of the strongest predictors of visceral fat loss. Small, repeated signals accumulate into major metabolic change. The body responds better to daily cooperation than occasional punishment. Stress hormones play a major role in fat storage. Cortisol, in particular, is linked to visceral fat accumulation. Intense exercise can temporarily increase cortisol levels, especially when recovery is inadequate. Zone 2 training keeps cortisol responses moderate. This allows fat-burning hormones to do their job without interference. Over time, the hormonal environment shifts toward balance rather than urgency. This shift is critical for reducing fat stored around internal organs. There is also a psychological benefit to Zone 2 training. Because it feels manageable, people are more likely to stick with it. Adherence matters. A perfect program that isn't followed produces no results. Zone 2 training integrates easily into daily life. It does not require mental hype or aggressive motivation. This ease removes one of the biggest barriers to long-term success. When exercise becomes routine rather than dramatic, results tend to follow. One of the most important concepts to understand is that fat loss is not about effort alone. It is about the type of effort. Zone 2 training sends a specific message to your body. That message is stability. When the body senses stability, it becomes willing to release stored energy. When it senses chaos, it holds on. This principle applies not just to exercise, but to sleep, nutrition, and stress management as well. Zone 2 works because it fits into this broader biological logic. Another misconception is that longer workouts are always better. Duration matters, but only when intensity is correct. 30 to 60 minutes in true Zone 2 can be more effective than longer sessions that drift into higher intensity. Precision beats volume. The body responds to signals, not exhaustion. When you stay in the correct zone, even moderate sessions create powerful adaptations over time. Many people unknowingly sabotage their results by pushing just a little too hard. They turn moderate movement into a competition. This small increase in intensity shifts fuel usage away from fat and toward carbohydrates. While this may feel productive, it reduces the specific adaptations needed for visceral fat loss. Learning to hold back is not weakness. It is skill. Zone 2 training rewards patience and awareness. Understanding how to identify Zone 2 without technology is essential, especially for indoor training. Heart rate monitors can help, but they are not required. The body provides reliable feedback through breathing, speech, and perceived effort. When you can maintain movement while speaking short sentences comfortably, you are close to the right intensity. This simple method has been validated in scientific comparisons with laboratory measurements. Breathing quality is another powerful indicator. In Zone 2, breathing becomes deeper but remains controlled. There is no gasping or urgency. The rhythm feels natural. When breathing becomes choppy or rapid, intensity has increased. This shift often happens without conscious awareness. Paying attention to breath keeps intensity in check and metabolism aligned with fat oxidation. Temperature sensation also provides clues. Zone 2 creates warmth rather than overwhelming heat. Sweat may appear gradually, but the body does not feel overheated. This reflects efficient energy use. When intensity is too high, heat production spikes quickly, signaling a shift toward carbohydrate metabolism. Subtle cues like this help fine-tune effort without relying on numbers. Endurance is the final confirmation. True Zone 2 feels sustainable. You should feel capable of continuing far longer than you plan to. This does not mean the movement is effortless. It means the effort is controlled. When fatigue builds rapidly, intensity is likely too high. Learning to recognize this difference is key to long-term progress. Another often overlooked factor is nervous system involvement. Zone 2 training activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which supports recovery, digestion, and fat metabolism. This contrasts with high-intensity training, which activates the sympathetic nervous system and stress responses. Both have value, but for visceral fat reduction, parasympathetic dominance is critical. It signals safety and efficiency, not urgency. Because Zone 2 training keeps stress low, it pairs well with real life. Work, family responsibilities, and mental demands already place stress on the body. Adding extreme workouts on top of that can backfire. Zone 2 acts as a stabilizer rather than an additional stressor. This makes it especially effective for adults managing busy schedules and high cognitive load. Another advantage of Zone 2 training is joint protection. The controlled pace reduces impact forces and uneven loading. This protects cartilage and connective tissue while still stimulating cardiovascular adaptation. People with joint discomfort often find that Zone 2 training is one of the few forms of exercise they can maintain consistently. Consistency, once again, becomes the deciding factor in results. The beauty of Zone 2 training is its flexibility. It can be achieved through many different movements. Cycling, marching, stepping, and controlled calisthenics all work when intensity is managed correctly. This flexibility allows training to adapt to space, equipment, availability, and personal preference. The body does not care how you move. It cares how hard you move. This flexibility also makes indoor training practical. Weather, time constraints, and location no longer dictate success. Indoor Zone 2 sessions can be just as effective as outdoor ones. The key is maintaining the correct metabolic state. When done properly, indoor sessions deliver identical benefits in terms of mitochondrial adaptation, insulin sensitivity, and fat oxidation. Many people underestimate how powerful small daily sessions can be. 30 minutes of consistent Zone 2 training performed several times per week compounds quickly. Over months, these sessions reshape metabolism, waist circumference decreases, energy levels stabilize, recovery improves. These changes are often subtle at first, but they build steadily. This is the hallmark of real physiological adaptation. Another important point is that Zone 2 training improves cardiovascular efficiency. Stroke volume increases, meaning the heart pumps more blood per beat. This lowers resting heart rate over time. A lower resting heart rate is associated with better metabolic health and reduced visceral fat. This adaptation reflects improved oxygen delivery and utilization throughout the body. The improvements from Zone 2 training extend beyond fat loss. Blood pressure regulation improves. Lipid profiles often shift in a healthier direction. Mental clarity and mood stability are common benefits. These changes are interconnected. As metabolism becomes more efficient, multiple systems benefit simultaneously. This holistic improvement is one reason Zone 2 training is so strongly supported by research. At its core, Zone 2 training is about teaching your body to trust fat as fuel. Modern lifestyles often train the body to rely heavily on sugar due to stress and inactivity. Zone 2 reverses this pattern gently. It does not force change. It invites it. This distinction makes all the difference when targeting stubborn visceral fat. Now that the metabolic foundation is clear, the next step is execution. Zone 2 is not achieved by guessing. It is achieved by controlling pace, posture, and breathing. Indoors, this control becomes even more important because space is limited and intensity can rise unexpectedly. The goal of every movement in this section is stability. Stable effort leads to stable metabolism. When effort fluctuates, fuel usage fluctuates. Consistency is what keeps fat oxidation dominant. One of the most reliable ways to maintain Zone 2 is anchoring movement to breathing. Breathing patterns naturally regulate heart rate. When breathing is smooth, heart rate follows. A simple rhythm works well for most people. Inhale through the nose or mouth for 2 counts. Exhale for 2 or 3 counts. This pattern prevents intensity spikes without conscious effort. When breathing accelerates beyond control, it signals that intensity has drifted upward. Researchers studying endurance athletes consistently find that controlled breathing improves metabolic efficiency. This is not limited to elite performance. The same principle applies to everyday indoor training. Breathing acts as a governor. It keeps effort within a narrow, productive range. Instead of chasing speed or repetition counts, the focus stays on rhythm. Rhythm keeps metabolism aerobic. Aerobic metabolism keeps fat burning active. Another key factor is posture. Upright posture with relaxed shoulders reduces unnecessary muscular tension. Tension increases oxygen demand without adding productive movement. This raises heart rate artificially and pushes the body toward carbohydrate use. Indoors, where movement range is smaller, posture becomes even more important. Relaxed posture allows the cardiovascular system to respond accurately to movement demands rather than compensating for tension. Arm movement also influences intensity. Large, aggressive arm swings increase workload. In Zone 2 training, arm movements should be controlled and economical. This keeps total energy demand stable. When arms move excessively, heart rate rises faster than expected. The goal is efficiency, not exaggeration. Efficient movement supports sustained fat oxidation. Music selection can also affect intensity. Fast, aggressive music encourages faster movement. Slower, steady music helps maintain a consistent pace. While music is optional, its influence should not be underestimated. Rhythm affects effort. Choosing the right auditory environment supports metabolic precision rather than undermining it. The stationary bike is one of the most effective indoor tools for Zone 2 training. Its primary advantage is precision. Resistance and cadence can be adjusted independently. To remain in Zone 2, resistance should be light to moderate. Cadence should feel smooth and repeatable. The goal is not speed. The goal is sustainability. Scientific studies on cycling metabolism show that fat oxidation peaks when resistance is low and cadence is steady. Heavy resistance shifts energy demand toward carbohydrates. This is why grinding pedals at low speed often feels exhausting without delivering the desired fat-burning effect. Smooth spinning keeps oxygen delivery aligned with muscular demand. Upper body relaxation is critical on the bike. Shoulders should stay low. Hands should rest lightly on the handles. A tight grip increases neural tension and raises heart rate unnecessarily. Relaxation allows the cardiovascular system to work efficiently. This efficiency is what sustains fat-based metabolism over longer durations. Breathing should guide effort. If breathing remains controlled, intensity is appropriate. If breathing becomes labored, resistance or cadence should be reduced slightly. Small adjustments prevent metabolic drift. Over time, this awareness becomes automatic. The body learns what Zone 2 feels like and returns to it naturally. Jumping jacks are often associated with high-intensity workouts, but they can be transformed into a Zone 2 exercise through tempo control. The key is slowing down. Each movement should be deliberate. Arms rise and fall smoothly. Feet step rather than explode outward. This controlled style keeps oxygen demand steady. Research on steady-state plyometric movements shows that when impact is moderated, aerobic metabolism dominates. The body does not perceive the movement as a threat. Instead, it treats it as a rhythmic endurance task. This keeps fat oxidation active while minimizing joint stress. Using both upper and lower body distributes workload across more muscle groups. This prevents early fatigue in any single area. Distributed workload stabilizes heart rate. Stable heart rate supports Zone 2 metabolism. This is why full-body, low-intensity movements are particularly effective indoors. If space is limited, lateral movement can be reduced. The arms can still move through a full range while the feet step narrower. The metabolic effect remains intact as long as rhythm and continuity are maintained. Continuity matters more than range. Invisible rope skipping is ideal for small spaces. It mimics the cadence of traditional rope skipping without the equipment. The focus is on light, repetitive hops rather than height. Low amplitude keeps impact forces minimal and energy demand stable. The calves and Achilles tendon perform a stretch-shortening cycle during this movement. When jumps are small and controlled, this cycle supports aerobic efficiency rather than explosive power. This keeps the exercise firmly within Zone 2 when paced correctly. Arm movements should be subtle, mimicking rope rotation. This coordination encourages rhythm and discourages sudden speed increases. Rhythm keeps effort predictable. Predictable effort keeps metabolism aerobic. For individuals sensitive to impact, alternating foot hops reduce stress while preserving cadence. The metabolic response remains similar. The body responds to rhythm and continuity more than symmetry. Stair climbing is metabolically demanding, which makes pace control essential. Using a single step or low platform allows intensity to remain moderate. Height is not the goal. Rhythm is. Stepping up and down at a controlled pace maintains steady oxygen consumption. Research shows that stepping exercises significantly increase fat oxidation when performed at moderate intensity. However, when step height or speed increases too much, carbohydrate metabolism dominates. Keeping steps low and pace consistent preserves the Zone 2 effect. Balance support can be used without reducing effectiveness. Light contact with a wall or railing improves stability. Stability reduces compensatory muscle activation. Reduced compensation keeps heart rate stable. This movement pattern strengthens the legs while improving cardiovascular efficiency. Over time, it enhances insulin sensitivity and mitochondrial function, both of which are directly linked to visceral fat reduction. High knee marching becomes Zone 2 when speed is reduced and control is emphasized. Each knee lift should be smooth. The foot should land softly. This transforms the movement from explosive to aerobic. Studies on low-impact aerobic drills show improvements in cardiorespiratory fitness when movements are sustained at moderate intensity. This makes high knee marching a valuable option for individuals with joint concerns. Core engagement remains natural without forced tension. Upright posture supports efficient breathing. When posture collapses, breathing quality suffers. Maintaining alignment keeps effort stable. Because this movement requires no equipment, it is highly accessible. Accessibility improves consistency. Consistency drives results. One of the biggest challenges with indoor cardio is boredom. Repetition can disengage the mind, leading to pacing errors. A Zone 2 mini-circuit solves this problem by rotating movements while maintaining intensity. One of the biggest mistakes is treating Zone 2 as a warm-up rather than a training zone. Increasing speed or resistance mid-session often feels productive, but shifts metabolism away from fat. This reduces the specific adaptations required for visceral fat loss. Another mistake is focusing on sweat as a success marker. Sweat reflects temperature regulation, not fat oxidation. Zone 2 may produce less dramatic sweat while delivering superior metabolic benefits. Skipping recovery is another common error. While Zone 2 is low stress, the body still needs recovery. Poor sleep and chronic stress can blunt results by increasing cortisol levels. Exercise works best when paired with adequate rest. Inconsistent scheduling also slows progress. Random sessions produce weaker signals than routine ones. The body adapts best to predictable patterns. Creating a regular schedule reinforces metabolic change. Using movements that are too demanding for current fitness level can also push intensity too high. Simpler movements performed well outperform complex movements performed poorly. Zone 2 rewards restraint. Visceral fat responds strongly to insulin and stress hormones. Zone 2 training improves insulin sensitivity and reduces stress signaling simultaneously. This dual effect directly targets the mechanisms that protect visceral fat. Improved mitochondrial function allows fatty acids to be used efficiently. When fat becomes a preferred fuel, the body no longer prioritizes storing it. This shift is gradual, but powerful. Reduced inflammation plays a critical role. Inflammatory markers interfere with fat metabolism and promote storage. Zone 2 training lowers these markers, improving metabolic signaling. Liver fat metabolism also improves with regular aerobic training. The liver plays a central role in fat and glucose regulation. Improved liver function supports overall visceral fat reduction. These effects compound over time. Each session builds upon the previous one. The result is not rapid weight loss but meaningful metabolic change. Zone 2 training protects joints by avoiding high-impact forces and abrupt changes in direction. This reduces wear on cartilage and connective tissue. Lower joint stress supports long-term consistency. Improved muscle coordination and endurance stabilize joints during daily activities. This reduces injury risk outside of training sessions. For individuals with joint discomfort, Zone 2 offers a safe entry point into regular movement. Safe movement encourages adherence, which is essential for results. Because pain is minimized, mental resistance to exercise decreases. This psychological factor is often overlooked but highly influential. Over time, improved muscle strength and aerobic capacity support joint health rather than compromising it. Zone 2 training is not designed for dramatic short-term changes. It is designed for durable results. Fat loss occurs steadily rather than explosively. Most people notice measurable waist reduction within several weeks of consistent training. Continued improvements occur over months. Metabolic flexibility improves. The body switches between fuel sources more efficiently. This reduces reliance on frequent carbohydrate intake. Energy stability becomes the norm. Afternoon crashes diminish. Mental clarity improves. These changes reflect internal health improvements, not just cosmetic ones. Zone 2 sessions fit easily into busy schedules. They do not require mental hype or long recovery periods. Because intensity is moderate, sessions can be scheduled more frequently without burnout. Indoor training removes barriers related to weather and travel. This increases adherence. The simplicity of movements allows focus on execution rather than complexity. Over time, Zone 2 becomes a habit rather than a task. Visceral fat responds to biology, not punishment. Understanding this changes how training is approached. Zone 2 works because it aligns with human physiology. It respects how the body evolved to use energy. Indoor training is not a compromise. When intensity is controlled, it is equally effective. Consistency, precision, and patience are the true drivers of success. This approach builds health first. Fat loss follows naturally. Disclaimer: this video is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended to replace medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult a qualified healthcare professional before starting any new exercise or wellness program, especially if you have existing medical conditions or concerns. Individual results may vary based on health status, consistency, and lifestyle factors. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, support the channel by liking, subscribing, and sharing it with others who want science-based health guidance. Stay tuned for the next video, where we break down another powerful topic using real physiology, not hype.